Namaskaram. I'm Rajika Puri, as Kavi mentioned, trained in Bharatanatyam, Odissi, and some Kuchipudi dances, which I've performed around the world. And also, since I was 5 years old, I've watched dance from all over the globe, Sydney, Australia, to Lima in Peru. Now I'm known as a danced storyteller and have developed works in a form I called Sutradharinatyam, danced storytelling. The stories are mainly from Indian mythology, though I did devise a major presentation entitled Eleni of Sparta, popularly known as Helen of Troy, at the behest of my friend, dancer, choreographer, scholar, Anita Ratnam, for her 2012 Natya Kala conference entitled Epic Women. I'm also curator of Indian dance for several institutions that present dances from India, like Jonathan Hollander's India Day he used to have. I think he still does, even though I am in Lisbon during the time, at his Battery Dance Festival downtown. This year's Dancing the Gods involved many dances that are new, in the sense that their movement sequences were recently choreographed, often by the dancers themselves. Their accompanying music is more often than not commissioned by the dancer, especially in Rama's case, where it was composed by singer-composer Sudha Raghurathan, with its world premiere in New Delhi just last year. Called Ratnagarbha, it is set to lyrics that are unusual for Bharatanatyam, culled from texts in Sanskrit that belong to the very early South Asian literature, like the Rig Veda, which actually may have been composed outside of India, before the Rig Veda was brought to India by nomadic tribes that migrated here in the 30th century BC, i.e. in the 3rd millennium before the Common Era. Her inspiration, she tells me, was from a seal she found during the during the archaeological digs at Harappa in modern-day Pakistan, which dates to 25th, 26th century BC. The word choreography, I think I need to push it forward, right? The word choreography originates from the Greek choreo, which strictly means dance, but can mean dancing, a chorus. Suffixed by graphy, it literally means drawing or writing dance. Amongst the oldest records of dance images I've found are in Central India, Eastern Europe, and Egypt. The first, from Bhimbetka in Central India, dates to the 90th century, before the Common Era. It clearly records some kind of line dance scratched on a wall cave with a jagged corner of a stone. The second is from a cave in Bulgaria in Eastern Europe. And the one from the 14th BC, Thebes in Upper Egypt, is a tomb painting of musicians and dancers and does look like a dance performance at a burial. At top left, we see a musicologist's attempt to capture Greek musical notes with a translation in Western music notation above it. As you can tell, the Greeks just wrote A, B, C, D, E, but the clefs that were, I think, attributed to Bach, Johann Sebastian Bach, are actually able to write it in Western music notation, which is what is used today. At lower left, there are two Greek pottery vessels painted with dancing figures from the 6th century BC and part of the British Museum collection. On the amphora at left, we see men dancing. Next to it, they're both men and women in some kind of celebration. The central drawing of a dancer with some kind of clapper or castanets dates to the 5th century before the Common Era and is in the British Museum. while the terracotta statue on the right, also in the British Museum, is dated at 14th century BCE, showing 3 figures in a circle dance. In India, our stone temples have amazing dance sculptures. In Tamil Nadu, South India, where Bharatanatyam originated, the walls of temples like the one at Tanjavur are covered with depictions of dancers in poses referred to in our ancient dance treaties as karanas. 108 of them that are also mentioned in our texts. A virtual encyclopedia of poses still referred to by Bharatanatyam dancers. In Odisha, the sinuous dance form Odissi was originally danced in the Puri temple's sanctum sanctorum, just for the pleasure of the deity. People couldn't see it. Jagannath, Lord of the world. Many of the best Odia sculptures that you can see are at the temple of Konark, 45 miles away, which is not used for worship, but is a beautiful, much worshipped, much visited archaeological site. In Andhra, where Kuchipudi originated, we find amazing temple friezes at the temple in Belur, and you can see how the stone figure's waist reflects the sinuous quality of Kuchipudi stances. But other than these effective static images, we had no way of capturing movement per se as later developed in Europe. 2 manuscript pages dated from the 15th century BCE, Catalonia on the Spanish continent reveal the first use of signs to represent abbreviations, employed in our Common Era, employed in Renaissance Italy, France, and Spain to record popular low bass dances. Capital R means révérence, a bow or curtsy. A small r stood for reprise, repeat. The first actual attempt to notate dance was in 1680 by Pierre Bauchon and Auger Feuillet, commissioned by King Louis XIV of France, the Sun King, who loved organizing spectacles with water fountains, fireworks, elaborate lighting, like torches of fire, wanted to record the way people and things moved, have a plan of what was going to be done by all his people. In the late 1940s, Joan and Rudolf Benesch, who developed the Benesch system, even started an academy of their own, which in 1997 merged with the Royal Academy of Dance. The most well thought out system, however, of writing movement was developed in the 1920s by Rudolf von Laban, and that's the one that most is used today because it actually records, has a system of recording movement. The foundational repertoires of Kuchipudi and Bharatanatyam, referred to as their margam, path, were handed down from guru to dancer over the couple of centuries since these forms were developed. In Kuchipudi, the repertoire is attributed to Tirtha Narayanayati, who lived between 1650 and 1745. It was his disciple, Siddhendra Yogi, who systemized the modern version of Kuchipudi in the 17th century. Bharatanatyam, as we know it, is attributed to 4 brothers from Tanjore, Tamil Nadu. In the early 1800s, the so-called Tanjore Quartet, Chinnaya, Ponnaya, Shivanandam, and Vadivelu, who performed at the court of the Maratha Bhosle ruler of Tanjavur, Sarfoji Maharaj II, a descendant of Shivaji Bhosle, an ancestor on my mother's side. It is they who set up the margam, path of Bharatanatyam, and the set of dances many of us learned during the 1950s to the 1960s, when Bharatanatyam gurus first came to New Delhi and when I started Bharatanatyam classes. It's amazing for how many years we all, including dancers like Indrani Rahman, Sonal Mansingh, even Yamini at the beginning, simply learned and performed the exact movements and choreography we were taught. I know students do that, they're meant to, but once you begin to become a performer who travels around the world, you would have imagined something would change, but it didn't at the beginning. In 1961, Mrinalini Sarabhai, who studied with the great guru, the Pandanallur style of Bharatanatyam, Chokalingam Pillai, brought out a book that I found in the London India High Commission in 1966. It contained lyrics of Varnams, mainly in Telugu, as well as a system of notating swaras according to bars of Tala. But as far as the movements were concerned, we wrote them in our exercise books with stick figures, as you see in the Adavu noted by the pioneer and stellar dancer Ram Gopal. In the early 20th century, two legendary dancers who had no access to or knowledge of the forms being taught and practiced in remote South Indian villages started to dance and choreograph ballets using a rudimentary knowledge of Kathak, Indian folk dance, some Western ballet also. My godmother, Menaka Sokhi, known as Madam Menaka, was the first European-based, then in Bombay, was at first European-based, then in Bombay, and she devised many works performed abroad from 35 to 38, including at the Dance Olympiad, which accompanied the famous 1936 Berlin Olympic Games, Hitler's first games before he became the Hitler. She later opened a school outside Bombay in Khandala. One of her students was adopted daughter, Damayanti Joshi, the Kathak dancer. My mother was married in her home, and Menaka told her to name her first daughter after her favorite role, the wandering Buddhist female monk Parivrajika in her ballet Malvika Agnihotram. My Masi apparently freaked out. She'll never get married. So added Mani Malini, necklet of gems, before that name. Mani Malini Parivrajika is my given name. Uday Shankar, Ravi Shankar's elder brother, had no training in Indian classical dance, but had been exposed to them as also to Western ballet. He performed with the legendary Anna Pavlova, toured Europe with partner Simki before he met and married his wife Amala in 1942. After establishing his short-lived cultural center near Almora in the Himalaya hills, he made the film Kalpana with his wife Amala. In 1965, he established a center for dance in Kolkata, and in 1962 received a Sangeet Natak Academy Fellowship for his lifetime contribution to Indian dance. This is one of the highest honors that were given by the Sangeet Natak Academy. Narendra Sharma ran away from home to study in Almora. He was a kid, where he first learned contemporary Indian ballet. As a young student in New Delhi, I knew him and saw many of his modern school dance productions. Later, his Ram Leela for the Bharatiya Kala Kendra was also an annual pleasure. It used to take place on the Ram Leela grounds, and I think anybody from Delhi would remember that. It was also an annual pleasure. He established his own company, Bhumika, for which he choreographed over 14 productions from 1970 to 2007 before he died in 2008. The last slide, you people will recognize, that is Chandralekha on the left, and in the center is Astad Debu and Ranjapati Sarkar. Sadly, none of them are with us anymore. Chandra really was a fierce fighter, and she did her Arangetram, but she wanted to do something different. And she shocked everybody when she sort of appeared on stage I think at the Madras Music Academy during leg dem or something, and I happened to be there, where she was straddling a man's head. And that was to show the Shakti of that in fact in India Shakti is female, and you have images of Durga standing on the corpse of Shiva. Astad Debu traveled all around the world. He studied with Pina Bausch in Germany, with all sorts of no masters in Japan and things like that. And he really wanted to find something new, some new way of moving. And a lot of his work was improvised. There you see him with some Manipuri dancers who are, in this particular case, they're dancing. Very often they were also drummers, because the drummers in Manipur also do a dance where they leap into the air and twirl and twist. Ranjavati Sarkar was the most beautiful, elegant woman. Her mother, Manjushri Chaki Sarkar, was also a dancer. And I was completely shocked when, at a very young age, she left this planet. She had long legs, she had wonderful technique, and she really was, being a Bengali, she wanted to bring something out of Bengal, because Bengal didn't have at the time its own tradition like Tamil Nadu or Delhi and other parts of India did. And this was her contribution. For the last slide, I wanted to show three people who are very much with us. Not physically here today. I don't think Uttara's here. But Uttara absolutely stunned me when I first saw her work. She also came here to study with Graham. She's a Parsi, so there was no Indian dance tradition that she inherited. But she did go, and eventually she worked at the Martha Graham School, and she danced all around the world. She was is quite a knowledgeable person. She teaches now at Barnard. She studied dance history. She continues to teach herself different things, including now she's a professor. The central person is Padmini Chittur, who at one point danced with or did choreography by Chandralekha, but who is really quite an exquisite mover and a brilliant woman to boot, or even mind to boot. And she has been absent for a while. I mean, this pandemic has really affected the theatre world and the performing arts world in terms of having lost people, of people having lost their practice, riyaz, and of having lost audiences who got used to spending their money and going out to eat. So thank you so much for being here, especially at dinner time. And then the last person you see there is Veena Pani Chawla, who is a force. She was actually an actor. She studied to be an actor. And then at some point she learned Kalaripad, as you can see. And she decided to go down to Pondicherry, to go down south, I think first in Bombay, and then she took her Adi Shakti to Chennai, and then she was able to found in Pondicherry her institution. Can you hear me? Okay. Very active in terms of in the dance field even today. So basically, I bring you back to what is today's agenda, which is, I hope you were here to see the wonderful performance by Kasi and Archana, but today we're going to see, she didn't say so, but I think she's India's premier dancer. She's an intellect, she is a lovely, lovely person, and she found this seal somewhere that is from the Harappa civilization, which was a woman upside down with a tree growing from her yoni. And that just set her thinking. She picked up texts. We usually, our texts are from traditional sources and Sanskrit texts. She found things that are from the Rig Veda, written probably before it came to India. And Haratna Garbha, which means the jewel. It's another name for Earth, which I think is an extraordinarily apt program for Earth Day today. Namaskaram.